Sweet. All right. Let's set up for slow flight. Some time. So slow flight, all of the slow flight and stall-like things all start at 1500 RPM once you're established in slow flight with full flaps and all that, saying use 1900 RPM. So, all right, simple enough. So, autopilot off for this. Bring the power back to 1500 RPM. And the goal here is to maintain altitude while setting up for this maneuver. Let's get back down to 3,000 feet first. There it is. Let's go first notch of flaps. Ooh, I did that before we were in the white arc. That was stupid. 20 degrees, flaps. 30 degrees of flaps. And your goal here is to maintain altitude as it slows down. And the airspeed we're looking for is, I think it was 50 knots? Yep, 50 knots. Approximately 50 knots. Oop, we're descending, need to hold it up. Trim, trim, trim. There's 50 knots. It's about 1900 RPM is what we're looking for. I'm a little slower than that actually. I'm at 40 knots, which is pretty intense. Need a little bit of right rudder, need to keep it coordinated. Yeah, I let it get a little too slow, so a little more power so we can recover here. Need to use power and pitch to maintain altitude and airspeed. So you can see when you're right on the edge of stalling, you're not going to climb no matter what you do. There we go, we got a slight climb coming back here. So once we get up to 3,000 feet, we should be able to get it back to about 50 knots. This is textbook slow flight at the moment, though, from the standpoint of I'm right on the edge of stalling. Right, lower that nose just a little bit. Just a little bit. There we go, there's 50 knots. Pull. So right now we're pitching for airspeed and power for altitude, so we need less power. Less power. There we go, there's 1900. We're gonna let it come back down in altitude a little bit, so a little less power. You can see we're staying right on that 50 knots and right at that altitude, so we're gonna let the nose come down just a little bit. Alright, we're on our altitude, back to about 1900 RPM. We're going to bring that nose back up where it was on the horizon. We're just going to sit here. Alright, now let's do a turn to the south, maintaining altitude. So we're going to have to add just a touch of power to make up for the loss in lift. Rudder coordination is key during this, because if you're not coordinated when you do this, you're not going to be able to climb. And if you stall it uncoordinated, you are much more likely to put it in a spin. Especially depending on what plane you're in. Alright, we're going to turn back to west, clear right. I'll let it get a little too slow there, we need a little more power in here. West, roll the wings level again. Awesome, so now we're going to recover and bring the power back up, 2300 RPM. We're going to slowly lower the nose. And as we start to gain airspeed back, take the flaps out one notch at a time. So let's go flaps 20. That'll help us accelerate. You can see we're slowly accelerating now. Let's go flaps 10. We need to stay on our altitude. Flaps up. power back to 2100 RPM. There you go. That was slow flight.